Hi ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Makalesi. Thank you for looking at my station one more time. Today I wanted to give you guys a quick little, not really an introduction, but more of some more information about the story to tie in a lot of information that has been given to you guys. However, you guys haven't been told the prerequisite to a story or haven't been really giving the missing piece to understand why the Anunnakis lost their evolution, what was the purpose of it, why did Pashado and Enki make an alliance with Dark Terrestrial group called the Dynasty, and what exactly does that play into the whole picture of the whole story with the Adamites and whatnot. So before I go into the story, I kind of want to tell you guys that I do have another video called Dark Terrestrials 101, which will kind of give you more information about them. However, before I go on into the story, I kind of have to give you a brief introduction here. So basically what we have in this universe is you have obviously you have different alien groups all around, and basically they're interdimensional, they're physical. You have beings that are mortal who are third dimensional, all the way up to ultraviolet standards, which are considered the gods, to the highest level, which you can kind of say the highest ultraviolets or alien group or whatnot is considered the Nitirus. Now going above them, you have according to Sirian and to Nichiru knowledge, you had another group of beings above them, which was called the Etherian group or the Dark Terrestrial group. Now, a lot of people or a lot of alien groups or whatnot from this universe heard of them, but not too many people really know of them per se, because the only beings that were able to communicate with these Etherian Dark Terrestrial groups were considered the Nichiru, so you had to be of a high certain frequency to do that. So basically, that was the setup. So you have the Nichirus, which is the highest level, and then you have the Dark Terrestrials, which is above them. Now, going to the Anunnaki story, there was a guy by the name of Pharaoh who was an Anunnaki, and he basically went into very deep meditation. Now, in his deep meditation, what he basically found out was that, there is the Dark Terrestrial group. However, what no one was telling the universe was basically these Dark Terrestrial groups kind of keep you up into a plateau of evolution where you kind of don't go past a certain extent. And what happens is there's an Ami Lord set up where one Dark Terrestrial male, which is called an Ami Lord, or female, which is called an Ami Queen, which governs over the planet. And if you kind of evolve past to the point, you would have to basically fight one-on-one with this Ami Lord. Now, these Ami Lords are very, very powerful, so if you fight one-on-one, you most likely would not make it. So they would push you back down into the universe, and therefore you're kind of stuck because no one really beats the Ami Lord or Ami Queen. So basically, Pharaoh, finding this information, he went into the libraries of the Nichirus and to the libraries of the Sirians and wanted to see if this information was true. And basically, he found it was true, and the governing Dark Terrestrial or Etherian group of this universe was called the Order. Now, finding this out, he went to his Anunnakis and was like, hey, this is the setup, what do you guys think? So, of course, there was a lot of inner politics. There's people who had different alternative views. But on the higher level of Anunnakis, they decided that they kind of wanted to cut their connections off from this Etherian Dark Terrestrial group called the Order. And the reason they said they did that is because they decided that, for one, they kind of just wanted to cut their connection off and try to see what would happen if they try to evolve without that connection. Also, they wanted a different part of the Anunnakis decided that if we cut our connections and we cause enough chaos, by theory, we heard that the Order has different types of rivalries, and if we cause enough chaos on this universe, maybe those rivalries will come, and then therefore we can bring problems to the Order. So basically, there was a lot of inner politics. This is the high order of the Anunnakis. A lot of the low-level Anunnakis did not know anything about what was going on. So they decided that they were going to try to cut their connection off to the Dark Terrestrials. And the way they were going to do that was through two ways, mainly. One, suppressing or limiting their sexual force. And two, they wanted to basically create this type of technology where people would depend on technology to make themselves more material. And obviously, the technology wasn't going to be as high as Nichirus, where you don't really need technology, it's all basically energy, but basically technology that was keep you a little bit physical but not really keep you evolved. So the Anunnakis made this type of technologies with the help of some rogue Nichirus of the Apaths, which was the Sobek and Set. And then they also made an alliances with some Luciferian Draconians. And with the Anunnakis, they made this type of technology where it was very advanced, but it wasn't very advanced as Nichirus, where it kind of kept you parasitic to the technology, and therefore it kind of didn't really help you evolve. Eventually, this technology that they had was spread and it became popular amongst the universe, and the other alien groups started using it. Eventually, all that technology caused a plateau in evolution, and people and aliens became very material, and no one really evolved. So when that happened, the Anunnakis, the lower Anunnakis didn't really understand what was going on, but the higher Anunnakis was realizing, okay, we have a dilemma. Now, what happened is they didn't realize that the Nichirus would not like this, because they kind of sided more with the Dark Terrestrials. So this caused a lot of rivalry and anger between the Nichirus and the Anunnakis. So what happened was the Order would channel through the Nichirus and actually strike at the home planet of the Anunnakis, because they're very upset about that. And of course, this caused a lot of rivalry. Now, with the Anunnaki roaming free without the parents, which is the Nichirus, and without the Dark Terrestrials, which is the grandparents, around them, it caused some Anunnakis just to say, we can do whatever we want, we're not governed. So of course this caused a lot of rogue Anunnakis who did a lot of crazy and malicious stuff because they weren't governed. And then you had another type of Anunnakis who were just like, wait a second, our evolution is coming to a halt, we need to find a solution, because now we got to make this connection back to the Dark Terrestrial, because now we are at a halt. So, and that's when the story of Enki making the Adamites, which is basically he spliced his DNA with a little bit of monkey and a little bit of the reptilian race in there, and try to use that to make this new Adamites. And he used the monkey because he had compassion. So when he did that, Enki's swing, which was one of the brothers of Anu, Anu was the head, and then you have Enki and Enlil, decide that they made this connection. They can kind of basically realign their alliances with the Dark Terrestrials. However, and so he made these Adamites, and they decided to have, the Anunnakis would have intercourse with these Adamites, and therefore they would have children, which were called the Nephilims. Now, Enlil did not like this, because he wanted them to this plan didn't work. He didn't want them to have this connection, so therefore he wanted to enslave them. And that's where you have a disagreement with Enki and Enlil party. So now you go forward to today's time. You have them reaching a plateau. You have them, they suppressed, by trying to go against this order, which is Dark Terrestrials, they kind of suppressed their own spirituality. And what happened was all the other alien groups, interdimensional groups, started catching up to them in their evolution. Therefore, they started losing a lot of power as the Anunnakis. So then what happens is Enki has a son by name of Pashado. Now, Pashado, he has a mentor by name of Lucas. And what happened was Lucas basically taught Pashado that, there's different types of Dark Terrestrial groups. Yes, the Order governs us, but you have the Foundation, you have, different types. You have the Dynasty, you have the Continuum, there's different types. So what happened was Pashado took the liberty of going to the Dynasty and learning amongst them. Eventually he came back with his Dynasty alliances, which were Dark Terrestrials, and he came to Nichirus and said, well, now I have some Dark Terrestrials. Do you want to work with us? Let's try to make a deal. So the Nichirus said, no, we're fine. So what happened was Pashado then went to a different type of ultraviolet group, which was the vegans, and basically the Shiva vegans. And the reason he went to them is because they had access to the sexual energy which they lacked. So now Pashado, which is considered the Messiah of the Anunnakis, decided to bring a solution to their dilemma. He connected with a different type of Dark Terrestrial groups called the Dynasty, which is different from the Order, which basically was from a different unicluster. And he also made an alliance with the vegans, ultraviolets, amongst other ultraviolets. So basically that's where it is now. So Pashado is slowly trying to stop the problems that are happening, and that's why the Dark Terrestrials are having alliances with Pashado and Enki. And the difference with them is the Dynasty does not really per se believe in the Omnilord setup, so therefore they're hoping that basically the Omnilord setup can basically be dispelled and everyone can eventually hopefully evolve to where they need to be. And you know, amongst the stars. So that's my quick introduction. I hope I answered or made this very easy to understand. If you have any questions, I definitely have some information under my dark terrestrials and other Anunnaki videos that you can watch. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.